Vice President, the problem of migration, some say, is resolved generally because some EU Commission, for example, civil servants say that in general it is resolved. But what we see as private persons, we see that the flow of migrants from Africa goes on. What is the situation in your country, and what do you expect of the European Commission and the institutions to be improved?
Sincerely, I cannot imagine how could somebody say that it's resolved, because the problem of migration is not the problem of today. It's a structural problem that is going to grow up towards the next years. We know that in 2050, Africa will have 1 billion people more than today. And still nowadays, they are tackling problems of growth, problem of unemployment, unrest, civil conflict. This is clear that it's not solved. And maybe the flows are diminishing just because now we are going towards the winter. And in the winter season, clearly, it's much more difficult for smugglers to bring people to Europe. But we know that again next year the flows will rise up. So what I expect from the Council is once forever to take in account that it's not denying the reality or enforcing the wrong rules of Dublin system, that we are going to tackle the problem. But I hope that finally we will rediscuss with a commitment the revision of the Dublin system, and moreover maybe the creation of a structured cooperation in which those countries that really wants to share the difficulty and the obligations of migration will be really supported by the Commission with an adequate amount of money and with the logistics support. And we know very well that the Visegrad countries will not be on board, but we can, let's say, give a real support and a real help to those countries that are really ready to put in force the European values and principles.
Just one thing, a simple question. How can we build this policy on legislation that dates the Second World War? Because all asylum-seeking documents, Geneva Convention, they are dating Second World War. So African population is growing very, very fast. How can we be loyal to our promises? Because President Juncker said that we have to give home to everybody who needs it.
Everybody who needs that, it means to people that are protected under the international conventions. But we know very well that many of those people, a huge percentage, bigger percentage, they are coming from economical reasons, not because they are refugees. We must always keep in mind the distinction between refugee and economical migrant. And of course, nobody in this moment is even reflecting on the problem of the economical migrants. We need a huge plan on investment and cooperation in Africa, a real Marshall Plan, but at the same time, we need to reform the rules and to say that if we are a union, every single member state has to do this part of the job. And nowadays, there are just 3 countries in the front line: Italy, Greece, and Spain. The other ones are just turning their head and turning them back towards the situation that is not acceptable. And again, I call for a reform of the Dublin system and the implementation of the structured cooperation. Otherwise, I'm aware of that, and I'm totally convinced of that. We will see the problem rising up and rising up again, and this time it will be totally impossible for Europe to take it with.